Good afternoon, Open Ed Conference 2022 attendees, and welcome to our presentation, Opening Opportunities for Teacher Education, first year update from the Minnesota State Open Textbook Pilot Program. My name is Stephen Kelly, and I am currently serving as the Innovation Program Director at the Minnesota State System Office. And I'd like to pass the mic over to my colleague, Melissa Williams, to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Williams. I'm the instructional designer on this project.
Thank you, Melissa. I am Michael Olesen. I'm the Interim System Director for Student Success Technologies.
And thank you both. Let's go to the next slide. The Minnesota State College and University System is a system of 26 colleges and 7 universities that spread across the state of Minnesota. We serve 340,000 students per year, and we have more BIPOC students than all of the other higher education institutions within the state of Minnesota. We also employ more than 15,000 faculty and staff, and we're often referred to as the third largest system of higher education in the United States. Let's go to the next slide, please. We work in a unit within the Division of Academic and Student Affairs at our system office called Educational Development and Technology. And within our unit, we serve several core functions for the system. We support all of our academic technologies like our learning management system. We also support a suite of student success technologies, for instance, services like tutors.com. And we also provide educational development across our system through our network for educational development. Lastly, we have many initiatives that are formulated around open educational resources, which is part of why this particular grant from the U.S. Department of Education resides within our unit at the system office. Let's go to the next slide, please. Within educational development and technology, we have a strong commitment to equity. And this is something that we've thought a lot about as we have undertaken our work across the system in the last 5-6 years that we've been in existence. We have infused equity and inclusion into this particular work through our open textbook grant as well. And we're excited to talk with you a little bit more about that later on in the presentation. Let's go to the next slide, please. Opening Opportunities for Teacher Education is a grant from the U.S. Department of Education, the Open Textbook Pilot Program, if you're familiar with that. Our grant provided us $1,177,283 to create open textbooks or open educational resources for 6 teacher education courses that are core to our programs across Minnesota State and that we think are going to be core in a lot of programs across the nation. And we'll be talking a little bit more about those courses and some of the curriculum we're working on a little bit later in this presentation. Let's move to the next slide.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Stephen. One of the questions is, well, why are we doing this as a system office? And it's because that what we're looking for in OTP in terms of being able to reach out to and create accessible and free content for teacher education fits very well within our larger strategic goals of Equity 2030, of being able to have financial stability and to have transformational change. And so this project, this grant, is really very much a part of achieving those goals. Next slide, please. So why in particular opportunities for teacher education? In like Minnesota, like other states, is experiencing a teacher shortage. 90% of the school districts reported difficulty in hiring faculty of color. This is something we hear a great deal. There's a wide gap between the percentage of students of color and teachers of color, and textbook costs continue to create financial barriers for students, including those pursuing teacher education. So what we did is we brought together a group of colleges and universities to work on developing this curriculum, these courses, and we'll be going specifically into that. But the participating schools are Southwest Minnesota State University. They are our fiscal agent because the system office is not allowed to receive federal DOE funding. We must work through them, and they have graciously agreed to participate in that role. Normandale Community College, St. Cloud State University, Century College, Minnesota State University, Mankato, and St. Cloud Community and Technical College. Now, we're not saying in participation just those colleges. We have other colleges that are participating, but they're the ones that are committed to make faculty available and to pilot our programs. So the 6 courses that we are developing are Intro to Education, Foundations of Instruction, educational technology, introduction to literacy, introduction to special education, human relations, and multicultural education. These clearly are those beginning courses that are essential and really make sense to be made available as OER. Fundamental to the process that we're following is establishing course authoring teams. These are made up of faculty members drawn throughout the Minnesota State College and University system. We have a number of faculty who are participating. Some are participating in multiple authoring teams. Others are in just one. The role of the authors, as we see here, is really to be our subject matter experts to think about what the content should be, what type of ancillary resources they need, what the assessments should look like, integrating digital resources, and then create in-task aligned content. Next slide, please. Now, what makes this very unique is that obviously throughout our system, OER is being developed by authors, faculty authors all the time. What we are able to provide is an infrastructure and support that is not usually available. We have a project director that oversees, the entire direction of where the project's going. We have a project advisor, who is Stephen Kelly, and Stephen's role was very much to create the concept and to build the proposal. And so he's been essential, and we turn to him often for guidance as we are moving forward. Then we have these key components: equity coach, and this position is really important to keep that equity lens and understanding aware, to be able to give feedback to our faculty as they are developing their content. Another essential part is an instructional designer, and they really provide the facilitation and guidance to support the faculty development. Next slide. And then we have some additional positions: an instructional designer and technologist to aid Melissa in her work as an instructional designer and to provide a different set of skills in the instructional design and technology area, as well as an OER librarian who is to assist the faculty with the OER resources. And then we will be able to provide additional development support, such as editing and illustration, as well as Pressbooks and assistance with developing this content in Pressbooks. And so this is where we are with our project timeline. We are currently in the process of developing content. We hope by spring of 2023 that we will be able to start piloting the content. We want to have the course contents created by the end of spring 23. We want to be starting to do the illustrations and instructional design and copy editing the summer of 2023. Really start piloting the modules in fall of 23 and spring 24. And then have these finalized in spring 24 and ready for distribution throughout our system, and then available to be made available nationwide. All right, Melissa.
So I'm going to talk you through a little bit about what our process looks like. So this graphic shows how our authoring groups collaborate through the design and development process to create culturally responsive, learning science informed, curricularly current, and modularly flexible courses. We follow a classic backward design framework, and of course these steps overlap and are somewhat iterative. As you'll see in steps 1 and 2, you'll note that the instructional designer and the subject matter experts begin with a broad needs evaluation regarding curricular expectations and practical needs in the classroom. Our subject matter experts are teaching these courses at widely varying types of institutions throughout Minnesota State, 2-year colleges, 4-year universities, and even at some technical colleges, and brought their on-the-ground experiences into our decisions about structure. That experience also played a significant role in our assessment design, steps 3 and 4, which is the point at which our equity coaches' insights around culturally responsive assessment practices became crucial. As the educators suggested assessment practices that have been effective in the classroom, Ed, our equity coach, offered ways to ensure students could see the relevance and rigor of what they were being asked to deliver, while also noting ways to integrate relationship building, something that per Hammond and other scholars is a crucial element in culturally responsive teaching, into the student learning journey. As the instructional designer, I ensured that consistency of design, transparency of structure, and implementation of accessible and learning science-informed methods informed our development every step of the way. Often Ed or I will have an idea for how we might bring an assessment to life, and our subject matter experts bring existing resources to us for the builds. So steps 5 and 6 are quite intertwined. We're just starting to touch on these steps, and this part of the process is really fun and creative. Step 7, evaluate results, will come during and after the piloting of these course resources at Minnesota State campuses during the next academic year. We fully expect to draw on the relationships we've built throughout the design and development process within our authoring teams to ensure honest and practical appraisal of where we need to revisit our prior design and development work. So as with any process, we're able to look back in hindsight and identify some things that we might do differently. And fortunately, because of the support that we have on this project, we've also been able to implement some of these things in retrospect. So I'll talk about some things that we've learned throughout this process, and they largely fit into these 4 buckets: personnel, role differentiation, onboarding, and organization. In terms of personnel, I think we've learned pretty quickly that the instructional design element of our project needs a lot more personnel, frankly. And so it's been really nice to be able to bring in additional support in the form of Steve Beckerman, our additional instructional designer. We also learned that design by committee can be really tricky. So reducing the size of our faculty authoring groups and adding a faculty lead to help the group get to yes as we go through the process has been crucial. We've also been able to add additional resources along the way. In addition to our instructional technologists, we've brought in, as mentioned before, an OER librarian and also some subject matter experts a little bit earlier for consultation as needed. So that kind of flexibility and awareness that we will need to make those adjustments as we go is really crucial. Role differentiation, I think, is really important as well. One thing that I think we would do differently now is allow our faculty or our subject matter experts to focus on just that, on the subject matter, rather than ask them to onboard in trying to use different kinds of tools and technologies that we need to use to build the courses. Instead, we would hopefully leave that to the support staff that is there to work with them, and also be clear about what an instructional designer and equity coach can do and how those partnerships can occur. And as part of that process, we'd like to minimize the information overload. I think in an effort to be very transparent, we provided a lot of information up front, and I think targeted information provision would be effective in the future. In terms of onboarding, along those lines as well, we would like to have a more explicit and detailed process that's written out and available to our subject matter experts and other participants in the project. We did end up providing some very solid baseline training on key facets of our project, like open educational resources broadly, copyright and other permissions law, accessibility, and also utilization of our final product, press books. But starting with that, I think, is something that we would plan to do in the future. And finally, we would like to ensure, and actually we now have several templates and an organizational system and process that we could be more transparent about. So starting up front and saying, this is the way that we will go about doing this project, I think would really benefit everyone who is involved in that as well. So what's next? We have the following steps remaining. We've mentioned earlier that we plan to conduct reviews, including a full equity review. We are going to be utilizing the branched equity rubric that is actually available via Creative Commons. I encourage you to check it out. It's a phenomenal resource and a great way to ensure that as you build OER, that you're infusing equity into everything that you create. We'll have our subject matter expert review, looking at the courses in totality, and then we will be doing a very thorough accessibility review as part of our commitment to equity. We'll complete our builds, which will include some videography, quite a few interactives, mostly utilizing H5P as our tool, which is fully integratable into Pressbooks. And then, of course, complete our Pressbooks formatting and publish those resources. We'll be piloting these courses out to our various campuses. And it's really important to note that one of the key facets of what we're doing is we're offering modular resources that each individual instructor can personalize to their classroom and their individual students' needs. So what we're expecting is that at each of these campuses, that different campuses and instructors will choose to use these resources in different ways. So we are eager to learn from that user experience, both on the part of the instructor and also on the part of the students who are in the classes where these things are being piloted. And then based on that, we'll be conducting revisions in response to the user experience feedback that we're able to get. But I want to talk a little bit about our aspirations for searchability. As mentioned earlier, we are using InTask national standards as our key alignment element that we put behind every single aspect of what we build. InTask stands for Interstate Teacher Assessment and Support Consortium. And there are 10 general standards and 173 specific standards within those 10 general standards. What we're hoping to be able to do is, if we are careful about aligning all of our materials, assessments, and other resources that we offer to those InTask standards, we would like to be able to map all state requirements to InTask as a crosswalk, so that eventually you may have a special education professor in Idaho that has 8 state-specific standards they need to cover in a particular course. They'll be able to input those standards, find exactly what we offer that would align to those standards, and start there in their search through our resources to decide how we can help and benefit them. And at the same time, be confident that what they find will be both accessible and also culturally responsive in its construction. So ambitious, exciting, promising, and something that we hope others can replicate in the future.
Thank you, Melissa. As you said, we're very excited about where this is taking us and what we're going to be doing. As we finish up, I want to be sure that we recognize other individuals who were an important part of contributing to this project. Kim Lynch, who is our Senior System Director for Educational Development Technology. Tim Anderson, who filled the role as Project Director until he moved into a different position within the system office. And Karen Pikula, who is our OER Faculty Coordinator. Next slide, please. It's also important to acknowledge our funder. The Open Textbook Teacher Education Project is funded in part by the U.S. Department of Education through the Fund for Improvement of Post-Secondary Education Program Office. And then the final slide. Really pleased with the opportunity to be able to make this presentation and talk about something we're very excited about and really see the benefit of. The presentation will be available upon request if you reach out to me, and we are looking forward to your questions. So thank you.